from Scuderia Audio, and today we're going to be installing one of my subwoofer enclosures in a 458. Specifically, we're going to be installing this box in a late model 458 Spider. So we have a lot to cover. So let me start at the beginning. The 360s and the 430s that were ordered from the factory with the hi-fi stereo option had a nice subwoofer enclosure that mounted up against the firewall behind the seats in the middle. Well, Ferrari installs two riv nuts in the center of the engine access panel so that all you have to do is take two bolts and bolt the subwoofer enclosure into those two riv nuts. So when I first started doing this and I designed speaker boxes for the 360s and 430s, I designed a stainless bracket that bolts to the engine access panel that gives you fasteners in the same two locations as Ferrari did with the riv nuts, right? Because the cars without the hi-fi option didn't have those riv nuts. So all you had to do is bolt the bracket to the engine access panel, put the carpet back, and then bolt my speaker box to the bracket. Now, when the 458s first came out, they had a similar engine access panel. So all I had to do was design a similar 458 specific stainless bracket that mounted to their engine access panel. And then you take my speaker box and bolt it to the bracket. Everybody was happy. We didn't even need an install video. The customers just watched the 360 and 430 install video because it was basically the same thing. The problem is, the later model 458s no longer have an engine access panel. It's just one solid firewall. So what was I going to do? I mean, I couldn't ask the customers to bore two holes in the firewall. That'd be ridiculous. However, in the course of doing some more R&D, I discovered that Ferrari did install four riv nuts on the floor right next to the firewall in the center area. So I thought, that's great. I mean, if I could just whip up an angle bracket, then I could bolt the horizontal part of the angle bracket into the four riv nuts on the floor, and then the vertical part would lay against the firewall, and then you just bolt the speaker box to the firewall. I'm sorry, you bolt the speaker box to the angle bracket that lays against the firewall in front of the carpet or the leather firewall cover. Well, it was a little more difficult than I expected. I had to do several rounds of R&D and a couple $1,000s. However, I came up with this magic angle bracket. Now, this thing is heavy duty. It's laser cut out of solid 1/8 inch thick stainless, and these tabs are bent with a 120-ton hydraulic brake. I mean, you'd have to basically run over this thing with a car to bend these tabs. In fact, as an experiment, I actually tried that. I laid this thing in my garage like this, underneath the front tire of my front-wheel drive Acura TL, and I slowly lowered the jack, lowering the tire on here just to see what would happen. And it took a while, you know, it slowly bent and bent. It didn't go flat, but it bent these a ways. But the point is, you're never going to have to worry about this thing bending. So all you have to do is just mount this to the floor. It pushes up against the firewall cover, and then you put the speaker box on there. Now, this is flat, right? But if you've seen pictures of my speaker boxes, you've already seen me talk about how, since I cut these enclosures with a CNC wood cutting robot that reads AutoCAD files, that I can basically take the exact shape of the firewall, which isn't perfectly flat. Like on the Spider, it's a very peculiar convex surface. It's more convex near the bottom than it is at the top. So I could make a pattern of that shape and cut a corresponding counter pattern, concave surface, on the enclosures. Right? This is for the firewall, and then this concave surface mounts against that nice leather covered fascia piece that sits on the top of the firewall. Right? So if you've seen pictures of this sitting in the car, it totally looks like it was custom designed for it, because it basically is. Right? But we have to mount this curvy speaker box to this flat bracket, right? So how I did it is, I just made sure just the 3/4 inch thick end plates had this curvy shape. The inner pieces are absolutely flat from the bottom to basically a little higher than the top of the bracket, right? So when this bolts against the bracket, it's a perfect fit. And you'll never see the bracket because all you're looking at is the side, and this shape comes out. Now, to get the bracket bolted into the car, all you really have to do is remove that piece of carpet. It just sits on the floor. It isn't glued down or screwed down or anything. Now, of course, you have to take the center console out first in order to lift that carpet up. So if you haven't yet watched my video on how to remove and reinstall a 458 center console, I suggest you watch that. It's real easy. You just need 3 Allen wrenches, a little teeny hook tool, and about 10 or 15 minutes of your time. It's really straightforward. Plus, you'd need to remove the center console to run the speaker wires to the speaker box anyway. So once you have that off, all you need to get the carpet out of there are 2 Allen wrenches and a Phillips screwdriver. There's 4 4mm machine screws, there's 2 3mm machine screws, and 2 small Phillips screws. Once you take those fasteners out, you can grab the carpet in the middle and just gently pull it right out of there, right? Then you just bolt down the angle bracket, put the carpet back, and then bolt the speaker box to the bracket. Now, there is a small caveat. You have to take a razor or a razor knife, and you have to cut 4 small, like 1/2 inch long little slits in the back of the carpet near the center, so the carpet can clear these 2 tabs. Now, before you go running off screaming, let me assure you that the location of these little slits in the carpet is in the back, where it tucks up underneath the carpet or the leather cover for the firewall. So if you ever take the speaker box and the bracket out of there and lay the carpet back down there, you'll never see those little slits because they're underneath. They're hidden underneath that other piece of carpet, so you'll never see them. So it's really a non-issue. So one more thing, I must apologize because this video is nowhere near as polished as my other install videos. Not that my other videos were that polished, but I had some time constraints, I had some light constraints, and some other constraints, and so I couldn't afford to sit there and do like 12 takes in order to get the perfect shot. I just kind of muddled my way through it. But the important thing is I was able to show that this is a very simple, straightforward install. You don't have to butcher your car up at all, and the results look spectacular. So, we have a stunning 458 late model Spider on deck waiting for us. So let's absolutely go out and play with the car! So this is our gorgeous 458 Spider that we're going to be using. So we'll back him in the shop, and an added benefit is we can put the top down and get more light in. Makes for a better install video. Okay, so the plan is that we basically have to get this piece of carpet out of here, because, see if I can do this myself, our bracket mounts right there. These pieces mount under the carpet. This pushes back against the firewall, and then the speaker box bolts to this plate. So all we really have to do is get this piece of carpet out. Now, let me take this bracket out. So to get this piece of carpet out, all we have to do There's two little fasteners, Allen heads, and then there's one Phillips fastener right there. Same three on the other side. Then there's two small Allen head machine screws under here. So we have to get the center console out. Now, the carpet tucks under the side panels. However, it only tucks under there like an inch, right? So if we take the center console out and take all the fasteners out, then what we can do is we can just reach back here, grab the carpet and lift it up in the center, make it kind of a hump, which will pull the ends in, you see what I mean? And it'll just gently slide right out from under those side panels, and then the carpet will come right out. Okay, so I'm gonna go off and remove the center console. Super easy. If you haven't seen my video on how to do that, I suggest you stop right now and go watch that video. It's just a few bolts and unplugging some electrical connectors. Okay, so now that the center console is out, we're going to take out the piece of carpet that lays on the floor in front of the firewall so we can make our 4 little cuts. Now, unfortunately, I don't have anybody helping me today, so forgive the shaky camera. I'm going to take it off the tripod. And I'm going to show you how nice the carpet looks without the cuts in there. See that? Oh, actually, I fooled you. The cuts are there. I took this carpet out, I made the cuts, and then I put the carpet back to show a good point. And the point is, the cuts are only made to the part of the carpet that tucks underneath, so you'll never see them. I'll show you. When you take this piece of carpet out, you see there's that ridge, that let me see if I can, sorry, let me see if I can go over here to the side. See, this should show it a lot better. It tucks down, and it's a lip, and tucks down and then up a little teeny bit. But so let me show you over here in the center. See that? There's 2 of the cuts, and there are the other 2, right? So I'm going to take this piece of carpet out, then I'm going to show you exactly how to make these cuts. Okay, now that we have the center console out, the rest is going to be easy. Now, I've already taken the 3 fasteners out on this side, so I'll just take them off of this side, starting with the Phillips. Right. And then these 2 Allen heads. Right, and then finally these 2 little ones. Now the carpet is a little bit tucked in right here, but like I said, you can reach in here, kind of spread that out, so see it lifts out, make a little hump, and then you can just pull it right out of the side panels. then once you get the one side out, the other side comes out real easy, and then you just take the carpet right out. Okay, so now we're going to put in the mounting bracket. So you get your mounting bracket from your kit, and then you put your 4 machine screws in from the back, right? So they act as studs. And then this flat area, you can see underneath this insulating material that it's actually hills and valleys and hills and valleys and hills and valleys, and it just so happens for some reason Ferrari did not cover this valley and this valley. And in addition to that, for some reason they mounted 2 riv nuts right here, which is perfect for us because we have this bracket, right, which lines up perfectly. These tongues, if you will, line up perfectly in these 2 valleys, and then the slots allow you to put machine screws, bolts, into the riv nuts, and then just bolt this thing right down. So we get our 3mm, get some fasteners, so just push it back a little so you can get it started. Then bring it down as far as you can go. Right? Then what you want to do is you want to just push it. Just give it a good push, because you want to have it right there tight against this. You don't want any gaps. So, it'll move like maybe 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. So while you're holding it, cinch these 2 down. And then cinch the rest down. We don't really need all of these for the purpose of this demonstration, but you get the idea. Just cinch it down with the 4 machine screws in your kit. Okay? Now we're ready to put the carpet in and make our little cuts. Okay, so now we're going to grab the carpet and put it in place. So just, get it over these 2 studs and then push it down into place. Now, I recommend that you get the 4 machine screws that hold the carpet into place here for 2 reasons. One, you want to make sure this carpet is exactly centered and in place, right? You don't want to make the cuts and then end up having them be like 1/8 of an inch off. And the other thing is, when you bolt it down, you see how there's a little bit of a gap here? Well, it's kind of hard to do this, but when those are in place, it'll push that whole thing in where it's supposed to be. Okay? Now, you just, of course, I already did this, but you get the idea. Just get a razor blade, a razor knife, or anything, and you just align it up with the bracket, and then you can either get a little felt pen, or, I mean, it's not rocket science. You can just get a razor blade and just put a little mark, put it right, you know, line it up right with the edge of your bracket. And I mean, you can just dig it in there, lift the carpet up. You can take it out of the car if you want to. I won't do that here. But then just, you know, all you do is you just kind of like saw a little bit. Be careful, don't cut yourself. But, oh, where'd my razor go? I'm telling you to be careful, and I dropped the razor blade. You take the razor blade and you just kind of just work it and just make a little cut to where it just begins to, you know, bend. Now, these tongues are exactly 1 inch wide. So you just get a tape measure. I have one around here somewhere, but just, you know, get a tape measure, measure 1 inch from where you made this cut, and then make another little cut, okay? And then you put it down and you do the same thing, line it up with this side, you make your cut, you go over 1 inch and you make that cut. You know, that's basically it. Now, the back of this thing is really thick padding, right? So what you do, you just grab these little pieces that this little tab, if you will, that's left over from your two cuts, and you just kind of lift this padding up a little bit on the edge, and then just bend this thing right under itself. It won't hurt it. Just bend it under itself, and then bend this one under itself. Try to hold them in place. Now when you go to put your carpet in, it goes right into place. Of course, remember, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to keep this tight when you have these bolts in. But I'm just trying to show you how to put this in there. You might want to cut it just a 1/16 of an inch wider than 1 inch, because I cut mine 1 inch and it's just like right on the edge. But I don't know. You know, if you want a tight fit, 1 inch is fine. And remember, I want to stress again that if you ever take the speaker box out and you put this back without the bracket, you know, you just unbend those tabs and it'll look just like it did a couple of minutes ago on the video. You won't even see them. Okay, let me grab the enclosure and show you how to bolt it in there. Okay, a couple of things. One is, make sure you run your speaker wire underneath this carpet and up, because, right, the electronics, uh-oh, a leaf. The electronics are just like all my other subwoofer boxes. They're down here in a recessed pocket. It's actually the same exact place as Ferrari's OEM speaker box for the 360 and 430. It's a perfect place. We're not going to do that here, but just remember, you know, while you have the center console out and the carpet out, you just lay your speaker wire right down. It'll come up right up, and bolt it to the two pins that come out here to accommodate the positive and negative wires. The other thing is, you know, people ask me, oh, why don't you, you know, put lightning holes in here to, because this is 1/8 inch stainless, it's a little bit heavy. Why don't you put lightning holes in here to make it lighter? Well, the reason why is, if whatever pattern of the lightning holes I put in here, it's going to eventually make that weird same pattern on your carpet. You know, and I don't want to do that. This is just one solid piece, so you know, when you take it out, there won't be any weird pattern into the carpet. You know, and if they have a problem with the you know 4 or 5 ounces, then I don't know, maybe they can take their gold watch off that day. Okay, anyway, so now remember, the enclosure has 4 slots. Okay, now yours are going to look a whole lot prettier than mine because this is an R&D box. It took me a few attempts to figure out exactly where to begin and end each of the 4 slots. But yeah, at this point it couldn't be easier. You set it in place, and then you got your washers. It's part of your kit, and then you got these machine nuts. They're nylock nuts, 10 millimeter. You start those guys. There we go. And you take a little, you know, 10 millimeter socket or wrench, and you just start cinching this thing down. There's four of these, obviously. 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I'm not going to put the bottom ones in, but just give you an idea. And just cinch these things up as tight as you want, and it will, you know, conform exactly to the the curvature of the firewall, because there is a curve. It's subtle, but it's a curve. And then of course obviously this has a convex curve, but you just cinch them up until it's in there tight. This one isn't very tight, but you get the idea. Okay, so now we're going to bolt in the actual driver so you can see what the finished product looks like. I'm kind of running out of time here, sorry. I just want to stress just a couple more things real quick. One is, you know, you can tighten and adjust these fasteners to have this thing just like, so you couldn't even get a piece of paper in there. You know, I'm a perfectionist, and I know most of you guys are too. Trust me, you can adjust this to get it looking perfect, and remember, you won't have any gap back here once you get those fasteners in there, and it'll push everything back. So we're running out of light here. I'm not going to put all 8 fasteners in. I'm just going to put 4 in. Actually, did my magnet grab one of the grabbed one of the fasteners. At this point, it's just like all my other speaker boxes. I have those T-nuts behind. So I say this with all my install videos. The T-nuts are great because you're not screwing a wood screw into wood to get stripped. You're actually screwing it into a steel nut, like it's a T-nut that digs into the wood. The only thing is that when you're tightening and untightening the fasteners, try not to put too much downward pressure into the fastener, because it's possible, however unlikely, that you may pop one of those T-nuts out in the back. Then you'll have to take the speaker out and push it back in. So, you know. Okay, well, that's about it. Just a couple more things. One is, for the Italias, it's a little bit different. Actually, really, it's not different, it's easier. Right? The only difference is where on the Spider, you know, this mounts against the firewall and this mounts against that upper fascia piece. You might need to take a minute to like do a little micro adjustment to get it to look all perfect. With the Italia, right, it's the same thing. It's got the curved surface with the flattened side, it's the same principle, but there's nothing on top, right? So all you basically have to do is just scoot this up against the firewall, done. And the last thing is, for the early model of 458 Italia and Spider customers who ask, hey, you know, even though I have the engine access panel, can I use that bracket because I don't want to bore holes in my leather firewall cover? And the answer is absolutely. You can use the bracket, no problem. It's a little bit more expensive, just a little bit, but yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Okay, well, have a great day.